Welcome to Common BTP Issues and their Symptoms. Learn to spot the most frequent BTE problems. This means recognizing common signs of issues before they escalate. For instance, if an application suddenly stops receiving data from another system, it could indicate a connectivity problem in the integration suite. Mastering this skill helps you resolve issues faster and maintain smoother operations. Recognize symptoms before they become major issues. This means identifying small, early warning signs in your BTP applications. For example, if an application's response time gradually increases from 1 to 5 seconds, that is a symptom of a potential performance bottleneck. Addressing these early signs prevents them from escalating into critical system failures. Understand how to categorize different problem types. This means grouping issues by their nature, like connectivity or performance. For example, if an app cannot reach a service, you'd classify that as a connectivity problem. This helps you quickly identify the root cause and apply the right solution. Build confidence in identifying what's wrong. This means developing the skill to recognize early warning signs in SAP BTP applications. For example, if your app suddenly cannot connect to the HANA database, you will learn to spot the specific authentication error log. Mastering this turns problem-solving from guessing into a systematic process. Why learn about Common Business Technology Platform issues? Quickly narrow down potential causes. This means systematically eliminating unlikely problems to focus your investigation. For example, if a workflow is stuck, you'd first check if the service is running before examining complex logic. This focused approach saves significant time and effort, making you more efficient in resolving issues. Speed up problem resolution time. This means you will fix issues faster because you recognize patterns from past incidents. For example, if an app fails to start, you might quickly check the service bindings first. Mastering these common scenarios significantly reduces downtime and keeps projects on track. Prevent small issues from becoming big problems. This means addressing minor technical glitches early before they escalate. For example, a small memory leak in an application might initially cause slight slowdowns, but if ignored, it can lead to complete system crashes. Proactive management ensures stability and avoids major disruptions. Become more confident in your BTE administration skills. This means you will handle daily tasks with less uncertainty, knowing how to resolve problems efficiently. For example, when an application suddenly stops, you can quickly check logs and restart services instead of panicking. This practical competence builds assurance in managing your BTP environment reliably. Authentication and authorization failures. Users cannot log into applications. This means their credentials or permissions aren't correctly configured in the system. For example, a user's password might be correct, but a missing role assignment blocks their access. Properly setting up identity and access management resolves this common issue. Access denied or unauthorized error messages. This means the system recognizes you but your account lacks the necessary permissions for the action. For example, a sales user trying to approve a financial invoice would see this error. Always verify your assigned roles to resolve this issue. Services cannot communicate with each other. This means one service cannot securely access another, often due to misconfigured trust or missing credentials. For instance, if a workflow service cannot fetch data from the destination service, processes will halt. Always verify service bindings and destinations to prevent such disruptions. Check user roles and permissions in cockpit. This means verifying the specific access rights assigned to your user account in the SAP BTP administration tool. For instance, a developer unable to deploy an application might lack the necessary space developer role. Always confirm these settings first when access is denied. Common service instance creation challenges. Service will not create or takes too long. This means the provisioning process in BTP fails or stalls, often due to quota issues or backend delays. For instance, a developer tries to create an HANA Cloud instance, but it remains stuck for hours, blocking their project. Always check your service quotas and the platform status first. Error messages during service setup means technical feedback appears when creating a service instance. For example, you might see a quota exceeded error if your global account lacks sufficient resources for a new HANA Cloud instance. Always read these messages carefully as they guide you to the specific problem and required action. Service shows failed status in cockpit. This means the system could not start your service due to an error. For example, if you try to create a database instance, but your quota is exceeded, it will fail. Always check the status details to troubleshoot and resolve such issues quickly. Check your available quota and service limits. This means verifying you have enough allocated resources, like memory or APIs, for the new service. For instance, trying to create a database instance will fail if your quota for memory is already used. Always confirm your remaining capacity before attempting to create any service instance. Application deployment failures and their resolution strategies. App will not start or deploy properly. This means your application fails during the deployment process or crashes immediately after. For example, a missing dependency in your project configuration causes the build to fail. Always check your deployment logs first to identify and resolve such issues quickly. Build process stops with errors. This means your application's automated creation process encounters a problem and halts completely. For example, if a required dependency is missing from your project configuration, the build will fail and not produce a deployable file. Always check build logs to identify and fix these errors promptly. Application status shows stopped or crashed. This means your app is not running on BTP, often due to resource limits or coding errors. For example, a shopping cart app might crash if it runs out of memory during a sale. Always check the logs to diagnose why the application failed and restart it. Check application logs for specific error details. This means opening the logs where the system records its activity to find the exact error message. For example, if your app will not start, the log might show a missing environment variable. Always consult the logs first to pinpoint the exact cause of the failure. Connectivity and network issues. Applications cannot reach external systems. This means your app on BTP cannot communicate with outside services or data sources, often due to network restrictions or misconfigurations. For example, an employee directory app fails to retrieve data from an on-premise HR system because the connection isn't properly set up. Ensuring correct network configuration is essential for seamless integration. Slow response times between services. This occurs when data takes too long to travel between different applications on the platform. For instance, if your sales app is waiting for customer data from the central system, this delay can cause the app to respond sluggishly. This lag directly impacts the user experience and overall application performance. Connection timeout errors appear. This means a request to another system took too long to respond. For example, your app tries to fetch customer data from an on-premise system, but the network is slow, so the request fails before data arrives. Always check your network stability and firewall rules to prevent these disruptions. Verify network destinations and connectivity. This means checking that your application can reach required external services or APIs over the network. For example, if your app needs to send data to Salesforce, you must confirm the connection path is open and accessible. Ensuring this prevents failures due to blocked communication channels. Resource quota and limitation challenges in SAP BTP. Cannot create new services or applications. This means you have reached the maximum allowed resources in your SAP BTP account. For instance, if your account has a 2 GB memory quota and you have used it all, you cannot deploy any new apps. Always monitor your quota to avoid unexpected development halts. Quota exceeded error messages. This means your application has used more resources than your subscription allows, like exceeding a data limit. For example, a shopping app might stop working during a sale because it used all its memory. Always monitor your usage to avoid these interruptions. Services stop working unexpectedly. This means when your allocated resources like memory or APIs are fully consumed, SAP BTP automatically halts those services without warning. For example, if your application exceeds its monthly API call limit, it becomes unavailable to users. Always monitor quotas to prevent sudden disruptions. Check your global account quota in Cockpit. This means reviewing your total available resources in SAP BTP to avoid hitting limits. For example, if you try to create a new Cloud Foundry space but lack memory quota, the action will fail. Always verify your quota first to prevent unexpected disruptions in your projects. Performance degradation symptoms and their indicators. Applications respond very slowly. This means user actions take much longer than usual to complete, causing delays. For example, clicking a button to submit a sales order might result in a spinning icon for over a minute instead of a few seconds. Such lags frustrate users and indicate the system needs immediate attention to restore normal performance. High memory or CPU usage warnings. This means your application is consuming excessive resources, potentially slowing down or crashing. For example, a sales report generating process might spike CPU usage, causing other services to lag. Monitoring these alerts helps you proactively manage system health and ensure smooth operations. Users report timeout errors. This means applications take too long to respond, causing automatic failure messages. For instance, an employee submitting a travel expense form receives an error after waiting a minute, unable to complete the task. Recognizing this symptom is crucial for initiating performance analysis and remediation. Monitor performance metrics in cockpit. This means using SAP BTP's built-in tools to check your application's health, like response times and resource use. For instance, if your sales app suddenly runs slowly, the cockpit can show if database queries are the cause. Regularly checking these metrics helps you spot and fix issues before users are affected. User access and permission problems. Users see different features than expected. This occurs when their assigned roles lack permissions for certain functions. For example, a user with only view access will not see buttons to edit data. Always verify role assignments to ensure users have the correct access for their tasks. Some menu options are missing or grayed out. This means you do not have the necessary permissions to use those functions. For example, you might see the Create Sales Order button is inactive because your role only allows you to view orders, not create them. Always verify your assigned roles to resolve this. Users cannot perform specific actions. This means their role lacks permissions for certain tasks, like creating or modifying data. For instance, a salesperson might be unable to approve a discount beyond their limit because they do not have the necessary authorization. Always verify and adjust user roles to resolve such access issues. Review role collections and user assignments. This means checking which permissions users have and ensuring they match their job needs. For example, verify that only finance staff can run payment reports, not marketing teams. Proper access control keeps business data secure and workflows efficient. Categorizing issues by severity for effective management. Critical, complete service failure. This means the entire service is down and unusable. For example, if the SAP HANA Cloud database is completely unreachable, no applications can access their data. This severity level requires immediate, all-hands-on-deck action to restore functionality. High major features not working. This means critical system functions are failing, preventing users from completing essential tasks. For example, if the employee expense reporting tool is completely down, no one can submit reimbursement requests. This severity requires immediate attention to restore core business operations. Medium, some functions limited. This means core processes work, but specific features are temporarily unavailable. For example, users can submit purchase orders but cannot attach supporting documents. This impacts efficiency but does not halt critical operations, so it requires timely resolution to restore full functionality. Low, minor inconveniences or warnings. This means the system still works fine, but there's a small, non-critical issue or a helpful alert. For example, a temporary slow response when loading a report. These issues require monitoring but do not need immediate action to keep operations running. Step-by-step investigation of common issues. 1. Check service status in BTP cockpit. This means looking in the central admin tool to see if your SAP services are running normally or have problems. For example, if your app cannot connect to the HANA database, first verify the HANA Cloud service shows ready here. This initial check often resolves the issue quickly. 2. Review application logs for error details. This means checking your app's automatic activity records to find specific error messages. For example, if your app fails to connect to a database, The log will show the exact connection error and timestamp. Always check logs first to quickly identify the root cause of any issue. 3. Verify user permissions and roles. This means checking if the user has the necessary access rights to perform the action. For example, a user trying to deploy an application might get an error if they lack the space developer role. Always confirm the correct authorizations are assigned to avoid access issues. 4. Check resource quotas and limits. This means verifying your SAP BTP account hasn't exceeded its allocated memory, storage, or service instances. For instance, if a new app will not deploy, it might be because your available memory quota is full. Always monitor these to prevent unexpected service disruptions. 5. Test connectivity between services. This means verifying that your BTP applications can properly communicate with each other or external systems. For example, check that your app can successfully send data to the SAP HANA Cloud database. Confirming this connectivity ensures your integrated solution works reliably. Where to find help in the SAP Business Technology Platform cockpit. Service status and health indicators. This shows the operational state of your BTP services, like whether they are running smoothly or experiencing issues. For example, if your SAP HANA Cloud service shows a green indicator, it confirms the database is healthy and ready for use. Monitoring these helps you maintain reliable application operations. Application logs and monitoring data. This shows your app's health and activity details in real time. For example, if your employee portal is running slowly, you can check these logs to find the exact cause. This data is essential for quickly diagnosing and fixing operational issues. Quota usage and limits display. This shows your current resource consumption against your account's maximum allowances. For example, if your account has 10 GB of memory, it will show how much you have used, like 4 GB, so you can plan accordingly. Monitoring this helps prevent service interruptions and ensures efficient resource management. User management and security settings. This is where you control who can access your BTP applications and what they are allowed to do. For example, you can grant your developers access to build services but restrict them from viewing financial data. Properly configuring these settings is fundamental to protecting your business applications and data. Support tickets and help resources. This means using the built-in system to report issues and access documentation. For example, if your app deployment fails, you can open a ticket directly from the cockpit for expert assistance. Always utilize these official channels to get reliable support for any problem you encounter. Practice recognizing issue patterns. Look for repeating error messages. This means if you see the same error code or text multiple times, it is a strong clue to the root cause. For instance, if a user reports several HTTP 500 errors when accessing an application, you know to investigate the server-side code. Identifying these patterns saves valuable troubleshooting time. Note when problems occur, time, user actions. This means paying close attention to exactly when an issue happens and what the user was doing at that moment. For example, if a report fails only at 9 a.m. when multiple users run it simultaneously, you've identified a pattern. Recognizing these details is the first step toward an effective solution. Check if multiple users report same issue. This means when several people independently describe identical problems, it indicates a systemic issue rather than individual user error. For example, if 3 employees all report being unable to submit their timesheets in the same way, this strongly points to a shared application problem. This pattern helps prioritize genuine system-wide problems for resolution. Compare current behavior with normal operation. This means checking if what's happening now matches how things usually work correctly. For example, if your app typically loads into seconds but now takes a minute, you have identified a deviation. This comparison is the essential first step in diagnosing any system issue effectively. You are ready to spot common BTP issues. You can identify 7 common BTP problems. This means you will recognize frequent issues like service binding failures or incorrect authorizations. For instance, an app might crash because a destination in the cloud connector is misconfigured. This foundational skill enables you to troubleshoot effectively and maintain smooth operations. You recognize symptoms of each issue type. This means you can identify the early warning signs that indicate a specific kind of problem has occurred. For instance, if a user reports a custom application is slow, you might suspect a performance issue in the underlying microservice. This skill is key to fast and effective troubleshooting. You know how to categorize issues by severity. This means you can identify whether a problem is critical, major, or minor. For instance, a complete system outage is critical, while a minor UI glitch is low severity. This skill helps prioritize your response and resources effectively, ensuring critical problems are resolved first. You understand where to look for solutions in Cockpit. This means you know to use the SAP BTP, Cockpit's built-in tools and documentation to troubleshoot problems. For instance, if an application will not start, you'd check the service status and logs directly in the Cockpit. This knowledge makes you a proactive problem solver on the platform.